An athlete that gained his new inspiration from a person that gave him a carton of milk every day for 2 years, and a person that never gave up on his feelings, joined by the sport of marathoning. The series starts with Jin-won running a marathon. He appears to be struggling with his pacing in the race until he falls due to exhaustion. We are then brought to his room where he just woke up due to his dream of losing the race yet again. He was having trouble falling asleep because of his race the next day. Jin-won was once a record holder in the high school marathon and was, by the masses, dubbed the Little King of Marathoning. Being the eldest son of the S group, he was bashed by the masses for being a wealthy man who lacked eagerness in his sport due to him losing his title being the best in marathoning. He decides to run for a while to make himself tired so he can finally sleep. Due to his drowsiness, he didn't notice that he went inside someone else's dorm room. Notably, he mentioned that it has been a long time since he had a great night's sleep. The man he slept with that night was no ordinary stranger but the junior in the physical education department, Go Sang-ho, a freshman and his new pacemaker. Jin-won needed a pacemaker for his upcoming marathon, so his coach assigned Go Sang-ho to match his timing. What's the point of having only set a new record for a high school marathon? Ever since Jin-won started university, he hasn't had a proper run since. Jin-won doesn't want Go Sang-ho, an amateur, to be his pacemaker cause he claims that he doesn't need one. To prove him wrong, Go Sang-ho runs the pace that Jin-won wants. By achieving this, he proves his abilities as a pacemaker worthy of their coach's praise. But Jin-won still doesn't want help from him. He also mentioned that he wasn't comfortable with Go Sang-ho, so he turns around and walks away. "I like you, senior," Go Sang-ho shouts as Jin-won walks away. We are then brought back to Go Sang-ho's room where Jin-won mistakenly slept. As Jin-won walks away, Go Sang-ho cheers him on his upcoming marathon. This concludes the first episode. In the next scene, Jin-won is warming up for the university marathon. His coach was praising him for resting well, as he sees his fiery eyes. His coach reminds him not to take the university marathon lightly because it's the prelude of the national marathon. The coach looks for Sang-ho, the pacemaker, but he wasn't there because Jin-won still didn't approve of him. The race starts and we are introduced to his background in marathoning and why he started in the first place. Since high school, he was unraveled, but after becoming 18, he was unable to finish an official race. The announcer commends his pacing whilst he was monologuing about his fear of being in the front of the race. Ever since he was in his first year in high school, Jin-won's father doesn't approve of his choice of sport. He suggests that he should change it to a more dignified and mannered one like horse riding or golf. Jin-won retaliates with his father that it wasn't a sport that money cannot touch and it is only rewarded by his efforts. It was something that money couldn't buy its way into. He was so proud of himself for choosing his path. It was rewarded with praise by others and awards. All due to his eagerness to defy his father, he was fueled with a fiery spirit. But after he turned 20, as he competed with adults, running became difficult for him. Then Go Sang-ho came like a bright star that would lead him to victory. Despite Jin-won's disapproval of him, he became his pacemaker to keep him from faltering. Their efforts are rewarded with Jin-won still being in the lead of the marathon and his pace was being commended by the announcers, stating that his running was great because even after the 10 kilometers run, he was still in front of the race. Go Sang-ho stopped at the turn for his job was done. It was probably that day, the day this crazy guy came into my heart. Jin-won wins the marathon first. Jin-won thanks the girl who gave him milk and for letting him know the taste of white milk. The girl denies it as she doesn't know what he is talking about. He mistakes the girl for the identity of the person who was giving him milk. When he was in high school, there was a consistent supply of milk cartons in his locker. Then his coach cuts in, telling him that they should celebrate his first win since he had entered university. The girl and his coach were begging him to go as their whole department would go in honor of his first win. The juniors had already booked a place for them to celebrate. The room was full of people cheering him on. He was looking for Go Sang-ho, but he didn't go to gatherings. His coach reminds him of the national marathon and to run at the same pace as he did that day. He leaves the event to go to Go Sang-ho's place and look for him. He was contemplating if he was going to knock or not until he heard a conspicuous noise coming from the room. He then entered the password of the room's door system. This concludes the second episode. Jin-won went inside and saw Go Sang-ho putting ointment on his nipples. Cause of the friction builds up on his nipples. It was chafed and sore. He then proceeded to scold him for his recklessness. Jin-won then asks why they both have the same door code because that kind of thing is not a coincidence. You told me yourself. We are then brought to a time when Go Sang-ho and Jin-won were in high school. Sang-ho was fixing the rubbish pile and recycling. Jin-won threw on his old white sneakers. Go Sang-ho being kind, he washed it and brought it back to Jin-won's locker. He threw it out again, but it was brought back, making him mad. He stated that he can't run with it again after a 5 kilometers marathon. They should know that a marathoner can't run with those shoes again. The one who picked up these sneakers, you have no right to like me. After hearing what he said, Go-Sanger started leaving milk cartons in Jin-won's locker. He heard that it was good for marathon athletes, as he has done his research on that. Without fail, Jin-won drank the milk that Go-Sanger left on his locker for 2 years, making him happy. Jin-won graduated from high school, and by chance, Go-Sanger and Jin-won met in front of Jin-won's locker. He gave all of his stuff that was inside the locker and its code, which was Jin-won's name. That small interaction made Sanger's heart flutter. When they met again, Jin-won didn't remember that he had once met Sanger and gave the code to his locker, now the door code of his room. Sanger confesses his love for Jin-won and kisses him, making Jin-won baffled. End of episode 3. Jin-won let it slide cause he was the one giving him milk 2 years ago. After doing it, Sanger was happy and relieved that he wasn't mad. Both of them had unexplainable emotional expressions on their faces. Jin-won started to get uncomfortable due to the awkwardness of their situation, so he started avoiding him. One day, he went inside Go-Sanger's room again mistakenly, and then he started reprimanding him for not changing the code in hopes that he may come again. He then confronted him as to why he was clinging on to him, but Sanger responded that he didn't want anything from him and just wanted to stay by his side. He asks how can he run the exact time in races, so Sanger brings him to his side job where he explains how he does it. He keeps tabs on his delivery of milk cartons and how he likes to deliver the quantity he wants in a run. Same as a marathon run, he proceeds to explain his routine to Jin-won. They proceeded to do the delivery together. Jin-won asked when he started doing milk deliveries, then Go-Sanger told how he started working after his mother passed in a traffic accident when he was in his 3rd year of high school. There was debt from his mother's hospital bills, so he needed to make a living and pay for his tuition himself. He didn't know his father's whereabouts. Since he was born, all he could remember was the time he spent with his mom. He was so down that he even thought of dying, but when he saw Jin-won one day when he was storing his shoes, he thought that he looked cool. He wanted to give Jin-won something, but he had nothing to offer. The only thing he could offer was the milk that was left on his deliveries. He was delighted that Jin-won liked the milk he gave. Before meeting Jin-won, he used to hate doing his job. He cursed the heavens why his life was like that, living on the edge with no parents, and the only thing they left was debts. Then he started liking it due to Jin-won, for it made him into the pacemaker that he needed. It even led him to the same university where Jin-won studied. Go-Sanger thanked him for giving him the strength that he needed that time. After hearing his story, Jin-won started to accept Go-Sanger fully as his pacemaker and as a person. End of episode 4. The thugs, the moneylenders, came and took the balance from Go-Sanger. They were giving him a job that would only take 3 months for him to fully pay the debt that they had accumulated due to his mother's hospital bills. They were pushing him to take it so he could pay them. Their team, Sanger, the coach, the female helper, and Jin-won met at a place to get to know more about each other. They went to a hotel for training to help with Jin-won train for his upcoming national marathon. During their stay, they bonded and got closer as time went on. End of episode 5. They bonded through the training period of Jin-won. Jin-won even encouraged Sanger to join the marathon, but he refused. He told him that what he was doing was perfect, for it gave him purpose and a sense of belonging. It is the right place for him. Like Woody has Buzz, he has him as his pacemaker. Jin-won asks why he liked him. What does he want from him? It makes him feel uncomfortable because Sanger isn't getting anything in return. Yet Sanger answered him that he didn't need anything. Why must he need something in return? It was his first time liking someone, so he didn't know what he wanted from him. After their conversation, the next day Sanger went out to do his deliveries. Sanger came home to a mad Jin-won. He tried to give him a carton of milk but was brushed off from his hands and it spilled all over the floor. He was scolded by Jin-won for not taking care of himself, knowing that they are going to compete on the nationals. Looking at the spilled milk, Jin-won sighed and left Sanger. He was mad that Sanger didn't buy the sneakers that he needed, but the girl told him that choosing not to buy it and can't afford to buy them are two different things. So Jin-won made a fake contract for his salary that the coach would give to Sanger, but Sanger saw through it and didn't accept it for his purpose as to why does what he do. It would lose its meaning. Sanger left the coach as he had felt distraught by what they were going to give. Jin-won followed him to give him the money. He explains that he needed the best pacemaker in order to become a great marathoner. For the best only needs to focus on what they are doing. The money is there to help him become that. Sanger was offended by this action. Not everyone who runs does it to come first place. I run for you. Jin-won was in a daze when he heard it. Sanger left him standing. He saw the thug who was collecting the debt and was cornered by them. Jin-won only wanted for him to be safe, but the way he approached him seemed like he was flaunting his wealth. I just gave him what he needed. He assessed his emotions for Saina with the help of his friend. On the other hand, Saina was being beaten by the debt collectors. He was asking for one more day because he is needed by Jinwon for the championship the next day. He was asked why was he running if it didn't even bring him the money he needs for him to pay off his debt. Afterwards, the contract fell from his pocket and was read by the boss of the debt collectors. He was slapped yet again. The 6th episode ends with him pleading. Saina went home to his dorm room and was faced by a box that was left on his bed. Jinwon buys the shoes that Go-Sanga needs for their race as a sign of him asking for his forgiveness. Sanga hugs the shoes with a bittersweet look on his face. He then proceeded to go to Jinwon's room after entering the code that was given to him when they were in high school. As he hugged Jinwon, he remembers how he was beaten up just to sign a contract that Jinwon gave him. As long as Jinwon wins the marathon, Sanga is paid the sum of what was written on the contract that was enough for him to pay off his debt. The thugs saw it as an opportunity for Sanga to pay off his debt to them. You have to run for your life. People say when you give them shoes, they run away. Then they drifted off to sleep while cuddling in the night. After that night, they grew even closer. The marathon starts with a click of a starter gun. People were cheering them on. Even the thugs went to the race to witness them win. Jinwon wins the marathon along with Saina. Jinwon gave the trophy to Saina, and he murmured, if there was going to be a reward, it should have been a kiss. Jinwon pushed him onto the bed, and Saina pretended to be hurt. When he approached Saina, Saina kissed him. We are then shown that the person who won was Saina. The 7th episode ends with them laying on the bed with smiles slapped on their faces. After winning the race, Saina gave the prize money to the debt collectors and took the contract that was given to him by Jinwon. With teary eyes, the debt collector ripped his name off the ledger and sent him off. Jinwon went to go Sanga's room and entered the code, but it didn't work. Sanga left without telling Jinwon. As Sanga sat by the river, he misses Jinwon and their moments together. Sanga returns to his daily milk run, but was caught by Jinwon. Jinwon punches him in the face for leaving him. He was mad that he left, but Sanga was mad about him giving him money when he gave his heart. I gave you my heart, so why didn't you try to give me money in return? He was mad about Jinwon acting like he doesn't know about his feelings. You are your own person, so why do you cling on to my dream? So what do you want me to do? Stop being my pacemaker, be my rival. When you are you and I am me. With a heartwarming kiss, Jinwon finally confessed his feelings for Go-Sanga. This series takes us to story of love, and the not giving up on your dreams mantra, and being your own person whilst being in love takes courage and patience. Sometimes when people fall deeply for a person, they slowly lose themselves just for the sake of changing for the person they love. Falling in love doesn't need you to change for it, only requires you to be yourself, nothing more. It teaches us to never give up, just like how Jinwon never gave up on his dreams, and Go-Sanga with his love for Jinwon.